Hey friends, I'm coming to you in a super informal way with my kitty here. Um, and I'm going to be very brief, but I had a moment to myself really quick before I needed to do some of the things I needed to do. And I wanted to talk a little bit about grief. I haven't made a video in a while, and this is kind of something that keeps coming up for me in that I should put something out there about this. If you're coming from a religious background, like some of my subscribers are, um, we go through life thinking this is the end and we won't see them again until heaven, or we'll never see them again because hell or whatever. And there's a different feeling with a loved one's passing or the passing of someone we know when you're coming from a place of religion rather than when you expand your awareness of the other side and spirits in general, as a Buddhist or a pagan or really any more of the more open ideas there. For example, with paganism, you begin to acknowledge that everything has this soul and everything is interconnected. And with Buddhism, for example, or Hinduism, you're opening up to the idea of reincarnation, and that this may not even be the last time they're in our life, just in a different form. With just a more, for lack of a better term, new age mindset, you're able to open up that when someone passes, it's not even the last time we'll ever hear from them or be able to communicate with them, and that really you become more aware that they're always with you. They're always communicating, and I don't mean that in a, what someone might say at a funeral, they're always with you, but that they're genuinely always with you, and that they may become a type of spirit guide for you, and that the more aware and open you become to the spirit world, the easier it is to acknowledge their presence and to notice that and to feel them around you. And for me, grief now compared to grief as a religious person has taken on a whole new level of comfort that I never experienced before. And another level of comfort than what I see my living loved ones experience that are still religious. When they lose their loved ones, they feel more hopeless than you think they would if they believed in seeing each other in heaven. But they do still feel this is the end until this other way of being that's going to happen in heaven, for example. To me, that wasn't enough to be a comfort, because it was put to me like, you're all going to be together, you'll get to see each other, but it's going to be different. You're not going to have the same connections that you had in this life. You're not going to, like for example, if a spouse dies, you're not going to be in a spousal relationship anymore, which when you lose someone that you love, romantically speaking, that's a heartbreaking thought, I think. I know that wouldn't be a comfort to me if I lost my partner, and, they if I was thinking, well, we'll just see each other in heaven, but we won't really be what we are now that I value so much. It's an invalidation to what your relationship is now. Do you know what I mean? And so I want to put out there some of the ways that I've dealt with grief. And like I said, just the shift in mindset has been incredible for me. And in learning more about reincarnation and reading books, for example, I believe his name is Michael Johnson. I can never totally remember the name properly, but I think it's Michael Johnson. Journey of Souls was a huge, eye-opening book for me to have read. And it was so comforting because just learning about this process more and all the consistencies between the regressions that this doctor's patients had really just enlightened me about how the cluster of spirits work in the spirit world, as far as you kind of stay in this. These are the people that I know in this life, and many lives before, and many lives to come, and they're not gone forever, and will be different things to each other in different ways, helping each other on this life journey into eventually becoming, more conscious, more part of the one, more love, more compassionate. And it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And on top of that, I've been reading Brian Weiss's books, which are perhaps more popular even than Journey of Souls was. But Many Lives, Many Masters, I think, is the first book in that series that is so interesting. And currently I'm listening to, I believe it is Same Soul, Many Bodies. And that one's more about future progressions. But, just familiarizing yourself with other alternatives out there, to be careful not to be stuck in the mindset of what death is in the way that we were raised to believe it was. I think as children we're just told so-and-so's in heaven, just because it's a way for adults to try and help a child understand they're not here with us anymore. But that becomes ingrained in that they're gone from us, and that's what we know. So reacquaint your neural pathways with other ways to believe and other things to know, and know that they're coming back. And part of this understanding this life cycle of reincarnation and coming back and things like that is knowing that when people pass, that they knew in advance before they even took this body how they would pass and what their life would be like. And that even if consciously they aren't aware, of course, of when their passing will be, we're not meant to know that in this life, or it would change our whole way of being. It would change our mental state, things like that. If you knew you were going to die in a car accident, for example, you'd never go in a car, you'd never go anywhere, you'd never have experiences you were meant to have. And so it's not for us to know really how we're going to die in this life. But the important thing is to know that, I lost my train of thought on that rabbit trail, but, just knowing that, we chose in advance what we wanted this life to be in order to learn the lessons we're ready to learn, or to heal in the way that we're ready to heal, that we need to heal. And in so doing, that our life passes once we have completed learning that lesson, once we have healed what we needed to in this life. And even if that feels premature to us of when they pass, and that's certainly a grief that I'm going through, is that it was just way too soon. We weren't ready, you weren't ready, but in reality maybe our hearts weren't ready, but they were unconsciously ready because they fulfilled what they were meant to, and maybe the manner of their death was a part of that lesson, a final lesson. We really don't know those things. It's not for us to know because that's their life journey. And it's for us. It was part of our life plan to experience that loss as well, for growth, and to eventually learn how to heal from that and things like that. So I just want to share one thought about healing for us that are left here, and offering healing even for the departed, with the mindset that they are still aware of all the things going on and stuff like that. Many of you may be familiar with a ritual called the Summerland ritual, and maybe you're not. Prior to reading about Wicca or paganism, I was not familiar with the term Summerland, and it is a pagan's way of describing the spirit world, the other side, heaven, whatever you want to call it. And so there is a Summerland ritual that you're able to perform that brings peace to those that are grieving, and also a window for those that have passed, for them to be able to know that you're going to be okay, and that you accept what's happened and things like that. A sort of way, I think that they cross over regardless, yet it's a way to help them to be at peace with things that maybe feel to them unfinished or unsaid. So I just want to share, I had lost someone recently. The most recent loss that I have had was a dear friend of mine, and it was completely unexpected. It really was. And he was so young, and just so vibrant. One of those people that are just one of the most unique, radiant people you'll ever meet. And I learned about it in a really difficult way. I learned about it through just seeing something on Facebook from someone I don't even know. And that was painful for me to hear about one of my dearest, closest, I don't know, twin flames, I guess, in the world, to learn that they had gone with there was no sickness or anything. To learn about it in that way was difficult. I think I processed through feeling jealous that, like, these other people who didn't share with him maybe what I did knew all of this before me. And when I felt we were so close, there was a feeling of maybe we weren't as close as I thought, because I wasn't on the list of people to call. But frankly, his family lived in another country, and his family that I did know had passed away. And so it wasn't realistic for them to really even know anything about me, I guess. There was guilt over I should have reached out more, and looking through my last message to him, it was, knowing that there were a lot of calls I ignored at times, because with a vibrant, energetic soul comes a lot of just high energy that can sometimes be difficult to deal with. And there were times where I just didn't want to take the call. Because the talk would go on, and now, of course, you're like, oh, I would give anything to have a super long phone conversation with that person. And I can understand, the hindsight of it, so to speak. So, there is a lot of emotions for us to process as the left behind people. There's some anger there, and anger that logically you can look at from a distance in a detached way and think, I know that my anger isn't logical, that it isn't reasonable, but that doesn't make it less valid to be feeling it. It really doesn't. It's important that we still process whatever emotion comes up, regardless of if it's logical or not, because emotions are not logical in nature. They come from the seat of our energetic points, and they come from responses and how we learn to respond to traumas as children as well. And so it's important to let yourself process these things as they come, even if they don't make sense or you think, well, that's silly. Don't brush that off. And so, with the Summerland ritual, it is a way to sort of hold a memorial service in a way that feels right to us, and not just the traditional funeral or religious service. If that doesn't resonate with us, it's important that we grieve in a way. Please get in bed. You're supposed to be taking a nap, honey. Go in bed, please. Sorry for the break there. It's important that we grieve in a way that feels appropriate for us, so that we can heal in an appropriate way, rather than in a way that society has decided for us. And in this case, I wasn't able to be at this funeral because it was in another country. And so I held my own. For me, I decided to have a friend with me. And she just joined me quietly in a place of, I think it was just, she was holding space for me to experience this. And you can do it alone, but for this reason, even her, she had no idea who he was. She never met him. But having someone to hold space for you, to release this pain, is a beautiful thing. And maybe even more so if it is someone that does know, they who have passed. But I cast a circle in this case. I used the elements. I cast a sacred space for myself outside in the forest. And I had pre-picked a tree and an area and went through kind of how I wanted it to be. And I can link an article in the description box below that describes the Summerland ritual a bit better. So I cast the sacred circle, and while that isn't necessary, I do feel it allowed for a much greater connection, personally, to my loved one. And, you know, such interesting things happened. I went through calling in the quarters, the directions, and I even called in my metaphorical god and goddess and those male-female energies to serve, to assist me in this circle time. And once that was opened and there was this protected space around my ritual, I then was able to just openly speak to my departed friend and talk to him. And I felt like it was a message that went through so clearly, and I felt him there listening, and it was just powerful and so healing. And I so encourage it for anyone that needs to find another way to grieve, to say the things that don't have to only be pretty things. They don't have to be, what's the word I'm trying to think of? They don't have to be like a eulogy. They don't have to be just honoring and that sort of thing. It's important to be honest and genuine and authentic in the things that you choose to say, because this isn't really just for the departed, it's also for you, and maybe mostly for you. So I told my friend how I felt angry hearing about it the way I did, and that I felt guilt for maybe not answering his last phone call, and for not checking in and seeing if he was okay. Just for not being there more, I guess, because to me our relationship was just understood, and it didn't really need to be cultivated all the time because it has a long history. And yet I felt so sad that there were so many questions that I was never going to know the answer to, which I have since recently asked my pendulum about and have gotten some answers. And there's always the question of maybe the pendulum is just answering what my subconscious believes it to be. And so there's still that question of, am I ever going to know? And I, short of seeing a medium, I won't. But I really want you guys to look up this ritual, because there were candles and I left a memorial at this tree, and so I'm now able to visit this tree anytime that I wish, and it's still there, and I have done so. And I actually promised him that I would bring something a little fancier, because I know that he would want that. But I kind of like the stone I brought now, so I will have to bring something else because I promised I would. And there was dead silence, I suppose that's a bad term to use, but there was just complete and total lack of sound the entire time during the ritual. And it was so interesting because at the very end of my ritual, right as I was closing down the circle, I recall a crow just calling and calling, and it felt like it was right next to us. And as I closed the circle, it stopped. And as soon as I blew out that last candle, it was like the forest came alive again. And it just became loud with noise and chirping and, rustling leaves from squirrels and things like that. And it was like the whole forest where we were was holding that space for us too. And it knew it was a sacred time, and it quieted. And it's like that whole energy became just this dome around us. And so it was beautiful to know that all of the energies were holding this space for us, and not just the people that were there. And the crow, I genuinely felt like, I'm not one to really see okay, I see a cardinal, that's a departed loved one, or to believe in every synchronicity is a synchronicity. I'm not really that type of person. But to me, the crow felt like it was my loved one's way of saying, I hear this. I see this. I thank you for this. Thank you for saying goodbye to me in a way that was meaningful to you. And it just felt like the best possible thing I could have done for myself and for him, to have this moment alone and to really feel his presence there. It was, I feel like, almost as good as if I had gotten to say goodbye in real life, really. And so I really encourage you to look into this. Personally, I've been working on developing mediumship skills lately, and working on my third eye, and really wanting to develop these certain sensory gifts that I feel that I naturally have into something more that can be healing for others, and maybe even down the road for myself. And I believe that we all have this ability. It's just a matter of going back to that childlike place before we're inundated with chemicals and societal norms and things like that, and calcified pineal glands. I think that we all have this ability, and me personally, I'm choosing to really open up to what I've always felt has been there waiting for me. And so I would like to see if mediumship develops for me. And in the meantime, I just know that it's important to do what we need to heal. So I hope in some way this has been helpful for someone, and that this can heal someone else as well, even just a little bit, just knowing they knew, they chose this time. And even if it wouldn't be what we choose or when we would choose, that it's all okay, and that they're not gone, and they'll never be gone, and will never be gone, and we will continue in this cycle once more as soon as they're ready. Maybe they'll come back as your grandchild, because the lesson they need to learn is no longer a parent figure, and they need to be parented to learn the lessons that they missed as parents. And maybe for me, with my friend, maybe he's going to come back as, a friend of my daughter's that I'll get to know in another way. And these cycles are painful to know that we are in this cycle of suffering while we release karmic debt and learn these lessons we need to learn. And yet beautiful in that we know these souls never die, and that the purpose doesn't end because the life ends, and that we can carry on communicating with them, and that it just opens up another way to have a relationship with this person that's new and exciting. And so if you're out there grieving, much like I clearly still am, even after this time, I'm grieving for more than one person right now. But especially one, because there are unanswered questions, and it did seem premature. I hope that something in here can comfort you in the way it has me. So, until next time.